The agreement between Israel and Lebanon is about to be signed later on this week is a major achievement, both for Israel, for Lebanon. I would say a lot of credit should be given to the US administration, to Biden administration, mediator Amos Hochstein, and also the France, the government of France, Total Energy, which is going to play a major role. Many players contributed to this agreement, which is being negotiated for about a decade, and many American administrations tried to facilitate. So why now? Several reasons in my mind. First, the economic and geopolitical situation in Lebanon is deteriorating. I would say the economy is in a catastrophic situation. The economy is collapsing, unfortunately, for the good Lebanese people. They are suffering. Many suffer from hunger, and the situation is disastrous. Vis-a-vis electricity supply, they get 2-3 hours of electricity per day in the good situation, and they are paying huge tariffs for this electricity because it is being produced by oil, that is heavy fuel oil and diesel, which is imported especially from Iran. And many are using private generators. There is a major shortage of diesel for those generators. So electricity is poorly supplied. Now, this is on the one hand. The second major issue is that by the end of October 2020, in a few days' time, President Aoun is about to finish his term. And after that, nobody knows, might be a vacuum in government, although there is no stable government in Lebanon altogether. And so following a major pressure of the Americans and a goodwill on behalf of the parties, and also the Hezbollah, which is a major party in Lebanon, the major force in Lebanon. Mr. Nasrallah understood that is for the benefit of the Lebanese people to develop a prospective asset, what is called the Kana or the Sidon gas field, what is a disputed area. And the disputed area, if maybe to give some background, it's a small, relatively small maritime area of about 860 square kilometers. And the reason for the creation of this disputed area is simply because two different methods of portraying or fixing the marine border that Israel and Lebanon took. Israel basically used a method in which the onshore border between Israel and Lebanon to Rosh Hanikra just basically fix a 90 degrees angle from that point towards sea, towards the agreed maritime border with Cyprus, which is 170 kilometers offshore, agreed between Israel and Cyprus, and also agreed between Lebanon and Cyprus, although it was not ratified by Lebanon, but it was agreed. The Lebanese, however, took a different acceptable approach, and basically they continued the same degree in which the onshore border reached the shore towards the sea, which created a small angle, basically differentiation, and a triangle which comprised about 860 square kilometers. So nobody cares about that. unless there is a prospect for gas discovery in this disputed area in Block 9. So, and the area was surveyed by Equinor, by other companies, and there is some likelihood of modest discovery in that area, what is being nicknamed the Kana field, although there is no field yet. So that's the source for the dispute. In 2011, the Lebanese government basically presented to the United Nations Marine Border or Border Registration Agency their claim, and Israel presented their claim, and there was no agreement. Basically, at the end of the agreement right now, Israel gave up. It's in fact agreed to the Lebanese demand on most of the line, except the first 5 kilometers, in which there are some anchored floatings devices for the first 5 kilometers, which is considered by Israel as its security border. So the security administration in Israel was not willing to give up these 5 kilometers. Israel agreed for the rest of the border, the initial Lebanese demand, line 23 as it's being called. And although 2 years ago, the Lebanese extended their demand, also claiming that the Karish field is in their southern to the line 23 is in their boundaries, Israel left the negotiations once they increased their demand. So basically, Israel decided to allow the Lebanese to have their claim, most of the area, because I think the Israeli government understood that this area doesn't have any significance from a security and defense point of view, rather than the economic assets that might be found there, that is the gas. And Israel already has 1,000 billion cubic meters of proved reserves, 1,000 BCM of gas, more than what we need for the next 30, 40 years, plus export to Jordan, Egypt, and so on, and Europe. And Lebanon doesn't have anything. It is also understood both by the Lebanese, Hezbollah, the Lebanese government, and Israel, that if this agreement is not signed, nobody, there is not going to be even one international oil and gas company which will be drilled, which will drill in the disputed area or northern to the disputed area, even the Lebanese, because of the chance that the field, if discovered, will penetrate to the disputed area. So it 0 or 100 type of game. So Israel decided Israel will get 17%, 17% of the profits if and when the gas is developed and supplied. And again, it is either 0 for Israel or 17%, because nobody will develop that field if an agreement is not signed. And for Lebanon, it's a great achievement. Hezbollah, from his internal consideration, could and indeed presented the agreement as a major achievement. And Israel also, the security establishment also said, basically, let's establish a deterrent here. Once we have the Karish platform on the Israeli side, and possibly a platform in the Kana field if gas is discovered there, there's going to be some form of deterrent between the parties. And Mr. Nasrallah that aimed and threatened Israel for the past decade, I have many I'd say recording of his saying, Arabic of course, that the Israeli platforms of Leviathan, of Tamar fields are sitting like waiting for our missiles like a sitting ducks. So although these are threats, and Israel has, as we know, defense can defend, protect those facilities in the Iron Dome, Marine Iron Dome, and other. But if there is a chance to diffuse Mr. Nasrallah's claims, Hezbollah's, we should go for that. That's why the whole security establishment of Israel, the IDF, the Mossad, the National Security Council, and other energy ministry and other ministries which were involved, they all were in favor of this agreement. And for Lebanon, it might be a win-win situation, because they might find gas. Total and with the consortium with Eni of Italy and Novatek of Russia, 2 years ago, 2019, 3 years ago, drilled offshore Beirut in Block 4, and was a dry hole. And there is relatively high likelihood of discovery in Block 9, in the disputed area, in northern into the disputed area. So why not developing that? We conducted 4 years ago a major study on the Lebanese energy. My company Eco Energy, financial strategic consulting, a major study, natural gas demand survey, energy demand forecast, and natural gas demand forecast for Lebanon. And we came up with ran various calculations. The demand for gas in Lebanon might start with 1 BCM per year and increase by 2040 to 7 BCM per year, and eventually enabling supply of cheap gas, relatively cheap gas, cheap electricity, 80% cheaper than the current very high electricity tariffs. In fact, Cyprus and Lebanon are among the only countries in the world which are paying such high electricity tariffs. Not saying these days, because electricity tariff in Europe have skyrocketed because of the energy crisis. It's another story, following the invasion of Putin of Russia to Ukraine. But because in Cyprus and in Lebanon, they are among the only countries in the world which are still producing electricity with oil, which is very, very expensive. So once Lebanon has the ability to produce, to convert its power stations from heavy fuel oil and diesel to gas, and to construct new power stations, combined cycle power station on gas, so it's going to be a major contribution to the Lebanese economy and to the Lebanese people. And this is also a major motivation and benefit to Lebanon, and Israel sees that as a very important element in its national security agenda to enable our neighboring peoples the best standards of living possible. If a nation is thriving, if people are hungry, it's relatively easy for Hezbollah, for example, for Hamas, for others, to ignite their hate against Israel. They find ways to blame Israel for the miserable situation they suffer. So it is for the benefit of both Israel and Lebanon that gas will be found there, and the Lebanese people will enjoy that. And for the so-called loss of revenues to Israel, in case it was not, if the area was cut in half, so Israel will get another few $100 million in 20, 30 years. It's negligible. I mean, it's not important. We have so much gas. Israel is enjoying among the cheapest gas in the world this day. The terrible energy crisis which Europe and the world is suffering these days is bypassing Israel, and the Israeli economy is doing very well and is not going to suffer from any recession. neither to say stagflation, high inflation. The inflation is was although 5% this year, but it's going to be 2.5% next year, and that's because we have significant reserves of gas, and the gas prices in Israel did not increase as increased by up to 15-fold in Europe, and the LNG price increased by 15-fold from $5-6 per million BTU to up to $80 per million BTU, and electricity prices increased by 4 or 5 times, 400-500% in Europe and other places in the world, and so on. Israel electricity price, gas prices last year decreased by 25% because of the growth with the excess supply of gas, because that the Energean with the Karish field is about to start production tests in the next few weeks, and by the end of this year they are going according to plans to be in full capacity of supply from the Karish field. So basically, the introduction of competition to Chevron and its partners, Tamar and Leviathan field with Energean, which really brought a lot of increase the competition, decrease prices, and with the Energean, that's the Greek British company, Mr. Matthews Rigas, the CEO, and they with the competition that they provided to Tamar and Leviathan fields, indeed brought prices to decrease from $5 to $4 per million BTU, and by that basically also shifting consumers, that is private the industry in Israel and especially IPPs, independent power producers, from Tamar and Leviathan to Karish, and they are going by early next year. They are going to be the largest supplier of gas to the domestic market in Israel. So they shift most of the consumers from the competitors, Chevron and its partners in Israel. So basically, we have the luxury of the rich in parentheses, of enabling to provide Lebanon with the possibility of developing gas. And many figures here before the elections, which are going to take place next week, you know, Netanyahu came and criticized the agreement, although if he was in power, the prime minister, he would have signed the same agreement. But he used that as a propaganda against the current government, and basically Israel gave up billions of dollars in income and so on and so forth. It might be a situation in which no gas will be found at all there. I mean, they need to go and drill, and only then it will be determined whether there is a gas there or not. And if there is gas, I assume they'll be drilling 2023. So hopefully by 2027, 2028, the field will be developed and gas will be supplied. And of course, infrastructure should be constructed, pipelines to the power stations. And there is no infrastructure, almost not at all, except one pipeline that I'll discuss later on, the Arab pipeline from Egypt via Jordan, Syria, to the power station in Tripoli, northern Lebanon, which was converted to gas back in 2009 and received gas from Egypt 2 years until 2011. That could receive gas. But again, this is in northern Lebanon, so infrastructure should get from that field if discovered. So there, it will take several years. Hopefully by the end of this decade, early 2030s, gas will be supplied. So we are not even talking about tomorrow, but this is tomorrow in infrastructure, in natural gas projects like that. So I think it's a win-win situation anyway, economically, geopolitically, strategically, and again, that's a window of opportunity that indeed Mr. Aoun is about to finish his term in government as the president of Lebanon, and elections in Israel next week came together. So such an opportunity one should not ignore, and the parties are about to sign this agreement on this coming Thursday on the 27th of October 2022. I believe, of course, a major beneficiary from this agreement is the Lebanese people, Lebanon. And the parties agreed that a major concern was that Hezbollah, for example, will not get excess, I would say, revenues to finance terror from that from the gas proceeds. So basically, the United States is a guarantor to Israel that this will not happen, and that it's going to be the Lebanese government which is going to receive the revenues from the gas for the budget, and not for, it's not going to be directed and split into the parties themselves, although it is very difficult to fight major corruption, and there are many claims for high corruption in Lebanon, as in other countries in the region. But at least Israel is relaxed in this manner. Another benefit for Israel is to lower the Iranian influence in Lebanon, because right now Lebanon is dependent on receiving cargoes of oil, crude oil and distillates, the diesel heavy fuel oil from Iran. And once they'll have their own source of gas, it is going in a way to lower somewhat the influence of Iran in Lebanon, and this is a major consideration for Israel. And that's another reason why it is beneficiary to Israel. I think also for Lebanon itself. The High Court of Israel yesterday on the 23rd of October 2022 rejected the appeals against this agreement. There were several appeals to the High Court against this agreement, and on a procedural manner, that it is not the provision sovereignty of the government basically to decide about to agree about such an agreement, but that is a parliament, the Knesset, which should vote on the agreement. And that was a major reason for appealing. And basically it was only government decision to take place later on this week, after the government only presented to the parliament the agreement for 2 weeks for basically public knowledge and for public opinions and the criticism and so on. And because we are not talking on a territorial water of Israel, we are speaking here on exclusive economic zones claims. It's not an area which is territorial. Territorial water considered an area 12 miles, about 20 kilometers offshore, which is part of the sovereignty of the country. Exclusive economic zone, a country has economic rights to explore and develop and utilize minerals, oil, gas, fishery, and so on. But that's the only rights in the exclusive economic zone. It's not a part of the area of the country. The country doesn't have a sovereignty on this area. So basically, the High Court rejected those appeals. So from a legal point of view, although this is an interim government in Israel, it was another reason for appealing, that it is not in the sovereignty of an interim government to agree on such a border issue. but legally it is fine. The High Court approved that. So the Lebanese government approved that. So we are about to sign this agreement. It is a win-win situation, although it is not a direct agreement between Lebanon and Israel. In fact, it is. Although they are not going to sit in the same room and sign the agreement document, each of the delegations are going to sit with the American envoy, Amos Hochstein, and provide him with signatures. But this is, in fact, an agreement between Israel and Lebanon. No one can ignore that, and this is very positive. So I'm very happy for this agreement, and I think it is important. I mean, in the regional cooperation in many fields, but especially in the East Med on energy, so discussing especially the gas issue. Not many people know that Israel started to supply gas to Jordan in January 2020. That is more than 2 years, almost 3 years from now ago. And right now, close to 70% of the electricity in Jordan is produced from gas from the Leviathan field from Israel. There was huge criticism and the demonstration in Jordan against this agreement, that Jordan will be dependent on Israel, and one needs to remember that 70% of the population in Jordan are Palestinians. They don't like Israel so much. But the King Abdallah, was determined. He understood the strategic importance in this respect, and see how lucky they were, because before that, they used to import gas from Egypt, which stopped in 2011. And then the halt of the Egyptian gas supply 11 years ago, after in the revolution in Egypt and the Arab Spring and so on and so forth, caused a major economic crisis in Jordan, because they needed to shift back the power station to have a fuel oil. There was a major shortage of electricity and so on, because of $5 billion it cost them. Until 2008, they constructed an FSRU, floating storage regasification unit, to import LNG in Aqaba, the top of the Red Sea. So they started to import LNG. So for 2 years they imported LNG. Had they need to import LNG now, they would have been exposed to the international energy crisis. They would pay $80 per million BTU for gas. This would have crushed their economy, and they are in economic crisis for many, many years, Jordan. Once they are receiving reliable gas from Israel in relatively cheap price of $6 or so, it is indexed to the oil prices, they are secured in this respect. Also, 10% of the lights in Cairo is being supplied with Israeli gas. Electricity production in Egypt. So Israel became an exporter of gas to Jordan, to Egypt, and some Israeli gas is mixed with Egyptian gas, is also being liquefied in the 2 LNG liquefaction plants in Damietta and Idku in Egypt, and being exported to Europe and to Turkey in this crisis. And the plans are that Israel will enhance its export of gas to Egypt. Right now, if you can look at the map, Israel is exporting gas to Egypt in 2 pipelines. One, that is the EMG pipeline, that the former pipeline from El Arish in northern Sinai to Ashkelon, south of Israel on the Mediterranean, which used to export Egyptian gas to Israel from 2009 to 2011. It was converted to export Israeli gas from Israel to Jordan, to Egypt, back in January 2020 from Leviathan field. And but it is up to full capacity also right now. So additional route is utilizing the Arab pipeline, which used to export Egyptian gas to Jordan, Syria, and Lebanon, and now a pipeline from Israel to Jordan sit with this pipeline, and basically Israeli gas is supplied to the power station and industry in Jordan, and in this pipeline via Aqaba to Sinai to Egypt. So now Israeli gas is being supplied to Egypt by 2 pipelines. It's not enough. So the plan is to construct another pipeline from Israel to Egypt. Either it was not decided, Chevron is leading that and its partners, either an onshore pipeline via the Israeli Negev to El Arish, or an offshore pipeline directly to the LNG plants in Egypt. It will take, of course, 3-4 years. And at the meantime, Eni and Shell, Royal Dutch Shell, which are the owners of the liquefaction plants in Damietta and Itku, they are considering to expand the capacity of these terminals, of the liquefaction plants, of the LNG plants. So additional Israeli gas could be exported, especially to Europe, and to later on also to markets, international markets, especially the Far East, China, Japan, Korea, Taiwan, India, and so on, later on. So this is the major plan right now of Chevron and its partners Israel to expand export via Egypt. Second option to expand export is Chevron is developing a plan to build 1 or 2 FLNG plants offshore Israel. This is floating LNG terminals. It's a new concept in the world in the past decade. There are several of them in the world, because it is impossible to basically construct an LNG plant in Israel in onshore, because relatively short shore, NIMBY, not in my backyard, nobody will allow that for environmental reasons. But once you have a technology today that you can do that plant offshore, 100 kilometers offshore or closer to shore, and so on and so forth, so Israel can be independent in exporting its own gas to any market it wishes. So that's the second plan. The third plan of enhancing export of Israeli gas is the East Med gas pipeline, which IGI Poseidon, subsidiary of Edison of Italy and DEPA of Greece, is trying to develop in the past decade. It's a pipeline from originally from Leviathan field via fields offshore Cyprus, via Cyprus to Crete, from Crete to Greece, from Greece cross the Adriatic to basically to Italy. So about $7 billion. This is a project which is considered a project of common interest by the European Union. The problem with this project is that 2 major problems. First, Israel does not have sufficient gas to export its gas to all those options. Enhance export of gas to Egypt, develop FLNG plants, and also fix quotas of gas to export to East Med gas. My proposition, and I discussed it with the advisors in Ankara of Mr. Erdogan. Mr. Erdogan is a major player, President Erdogan, in the development of the offshore gas fields of Cyprus. In fact, in his violent manner, he is preventing, in fact, violently, in some areas of Cyprus that he claims most of the exclusive economic zone of Cyprus as Turkish or TRNC, territorial exclusive economic zones, and so on and so forth. So, in fact, without his consent, it will be, I think, impossible for Cyprus to develop its own offshore fields. Maybe Aphrodite, yes, because this is on the Israeli exclusive economic zone area. It is not in the area which he claims as Turkey's or TRNC's exclusive economic zone. But most of the gas fields which were discovered by Total, Exxon, and Eni and so on in Cyprus won't be able to develop them. I think that's a major shame for the European Union that they are enabling this situation. We are speaking here on a a member of the EU, Cyprus. We are speaking on European companies. We are speaking on Total, on ENI, and so on. And the EU did not come to help to assist Cyprus in this respect vis-a-vis Mr. Erdogan. Because of other reasons, of course, we can discuss it some other time, we know very well. So my idea is to enable the development of the East Med gas pipeline. It will need to be based on Cypriot gas plus some Israeli gas, but it cannot be based on Israeli gas. We don't have, because we have nice reserves, significant reserves for ourselves, but only 1,000 BCM, 1,000 billion cubic meters of gas. That's what we have. Israel decided to allocate 600 BCM for its own use for the next 30 years and so on, 400 BCMs for export, 200 BCMs are already dedicated for export to Jordan and Egypt long-term contracts. So only 200 BCMs left for export. You cannot have the three. You can export more gas to Egypt and to develop FLNG. You can have the East Med pipeline, and you cannot have the three as long as there is no more gas discovered. Once there is more gas discovered offshore, of course, we can discuss. But right now, those years, an East Med gas pipeline should be based especially, in my view, on Cypriot gas plus some Israeli gas. So in this respect, my proposition to Mr. Erdogan, it was brought to his attention by his closest aides, is that the East Med gas pipeline, that basically that he needs to change his attitude because he wants to renew his relations, and in fact with Israel, yes, Israel is not a major player on this story here. But with Egypt, he wants to change his, he's changing his strategic and geopolitical view, at least he's saying that. He wants to maybe possibly a member of the East Med Gas Forum. So if he really wants to be a player, he needs to change his attitude and to basically isolate the gas issue from the Cyprus problem. And I don't know if he's going to do that, but in this case, the East Med gas pipeline, and if he's providing his consent, could be based on especially Cypriot gas, Israeli gas, go on that direction which is planned via Cyprus, Israel, Cyprus, Crete, Greece to Italy, plus an extension to Turkey. So in this manner, East Med gas could be exported both to Europe and to Turkey. And this is my idea. They heard the idea. I mean, the Turkish representatives, a very close aide to, and also from the foreign minister, discussed it with them. Let's continue to discuss it. I think that we might need, the EPRIC might be a facilitator here. We can have a regional, not non-governmental, gas forum, and we can discuss this option in a way, because this scheme can enable the development of East Med gas, especially the Cypriot gas. Because Israel, as you understand, we are going our course. When Israel is fine, is doing very well in this respect, and thanks to this gas, right now 70% of the electricity is based on gas. It was 80% coal, 20% oil only 10 years ago. Now it's already 70% gas, 20% coal, and 10% renewables. Renewable share, especially solar energy, is increasing, and basically Israel is holding the record, a world record in abandoning coal and phasing out of coal. And by 2025, 3 years from now, according to government resolution, we are going to stop producing electricity from coal altogether. So 85% of electricity is going to be based on gas. By then, 15% is going to be based on solar energy, renewable energy, and the share of renewables is going to increase in power generation. So many benefits of this gas to Israel, and I think that with regional cooperation and with hopefully positive attitude of the Turkish government, Mr. Erdogan, also Cyprus might enjoy its gas resources, and these are proved reserves. It's not like in Lebanon, which still gas should be proved, found and proved. So I'm optimistic vis-a-vis the development. I'm not so much optimistic about the resolution of the Cypriot problem in the short run, but if the parties agree to isolate the gas issue for the benefit of the Greek Cypriot, the Turkish Cypriot, Turkey and Europe, but it is based on the decision of one man, Mr. Erdogan, in this respect, and Israel will be glad to facilitate. But we are not a major player here in this respect. So just to mention that there are talks about also the development of the Gaza Marine gas field offshore Gaza, which was discovered in the year 2000, possibly to develop it and export gas from its offshore Gaza, 35 kilometers offshore. It's a relatively small field, but significant amount for the Palestinians. Develop it via Egypt. So hopefully this is going to be developed as well in the next few years. Thank you.